Let's watch a couple clips of Hasan Piker on CNN. Hasan is a lefty streamer of whom's views overlap a lot with mine, though we disagree on some aspects of like foreign policy, for instance, but domestically especially, I think his ideologies are very sound. We're both pro-Palestine. I mean, he is one of my favorite streamers, though he's probably not one of the sources I would send you to first as your first like step into politics. He does it live, and I just think there's other more stomachable ways to get into politics, but his perspective for what Democrats need to do to bring their base back to the party is pretty aligned with what I believe Democrats need to do. So I wanted to play a couple of these clips so we could jump in after and really discuss this.
There's a general sense that when it comes to the world of podcasts, alternative media, I don't even know what you want to call it, that Trump did a much better job with that than Democrats and Harris.
Absolutely. I think that's true. I was a naysayer early. When I saw the Aiden Ross collab, I thought this doesn't have motion.
So this is Trump with Aiden Ross.
When Trump went on Aiden Ross's stream, I was like, it was awkward. It was weird. But then I saw Trump on Theo Vaughn, and he started talking about cocaine, and I was like, uh-oh, this humanizes him.
Cocaine is stronger. Up.
Yeah. Cocaine will make
so you're way up with cocaine more than anything else you can think of.
Cocaine will turn you into a damn owl, homie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Harris did consider going on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
But she didn't.
So that was a mistake.
For Dems in this campaign cycle, I feel they lost the ability to relate with everyday, non-chronically online people, even from how they did in 2020, where I think Joe Biden has his way of doing this with his like pro-union talk and things like that. I think he was more successful in this than Kamala. And to Kamala's defense, Democrats' defense, I got caught up in this too, where I truly also believe that the attack on Trump being a threat to democracy would resonate with people. We just had to tell them enough of the facts of the matter. I was going around telling people, and it seems what we found out that this isn't what everyday average Joe cares about. The fact that Trump failed was enough to say it's no big deal to them. And I think the misinformation about Trump's doings on January 6th and things like that were a lot stronger than the facts of it, right? There would be so many people who I came up with, I would come to talking to that didn't even know that he tried to install fake electors in 7 states, right? That they didn't know that he did try to get Bill Barr to lie about election fraud. So many people who will say things like, well, maybe he actually thought there was fraud. Like the amount of people who don't know that like national security, his own central intelligence, his own DOJ, Bill Barr, everyone in his administration told him it was fraud. Like people just didn't know the facts of the matter the same way they knew the misinformation. And I just think that a lot of people just, again, are going to vote off vibes, as disappointing that is, where they just want someone who feels like a real person, who can play down the fears or mistrust that they might have of the government. And Trump going on all these bro podcasts, him campaigning on the sense that they're out to get him, I think he plays to that a lot more. He plays a lot more to the anger, this kind of male anger and this kind of male insecurity, right? And I think that that's what won him this election, and it resonates with young people especially because, I mean, it's what they're feeling in their day-to-day lives, and it's just that's something that the Democrats weren't really able to elude or elicit, right? They weren't able to resonate with voters in a way that's like, this person is just like me. And it sucks because Trump's doing it is all just a lie. And to this extent, I don't think the Dems can just podcast their way out of this corner, which is why I say it's not enough just for us to get on Rogan. I'm sure that will help. And yes, building up our own like apparatus to combat the misinformation machine is important, but what we need is to bring back what Bernie had, the fire that he stoked, where he leaned into actual economic populism. Hey, you think the establishment sucks? Well, it does. I will tell you it does suck. And here's why. And here's how we fix it. I'm with you and let's do this. And that's what people love, right? It's why Trump can get away with only doing half of the work here, right? Where all he has to say is, people hate the establishment sucks. And then he can just say, the establishment is the Democrats, and boom. He never actually has to address any of the problems or any of the things the establishment does, right? And actually, it's funny because in his first term, he actually strengthened the establishment, added to it, largely was a puppet for the establishment. But because he's like, at least vocally going to signal like disdain against it, he can just get away with all of that. He just alludes to it, and that's enough for MAGA. And to counter that is, we have to actually acknowledge these problems as well that Trump is acknowledging that Dems don't, whether it be for fear of being labeled radical or fear of losing donors, because the way that they would be talking about these issues is a lot different than the way that Trump will, right? Not just lying about them, about proposing actual solutions, right? So if we actually acknowledge these problems that Trump is, but then actually propose solutions to them and get those solutions done, that's how we win back our base.
What is it that the Democrat Party has to do differently?
Well, I think that they need to change their policies.
It's a policy thing.
Yes, it's 100% a policy thing.
Because I'll
which
say,
is the boring answer. Although it would be very self-serving for me to say, I'm the left's Joe Rogan, the Democratic Party should give me millions of dollars. That's not going to solve this problem. What will solve this problem is if the Democratic Party actually adopts real left-wing economic populist messaging instead of purposefully avoiding that stuff because they're terrified of upsetting their corporate donors. I think Trump speaks to male insecurities better, and I think Trump speaks to the anger that people have. Whereas the other side of the political spectrum does not speak to that anger at all.
I completely agree here. And as I was getting to at the end of the last part of it is because of the donors, right? We know from Jacobin reporting that as more donors rolled into Kamala's campaign, she began ditching the more progressive parts of her agenda and messaging and changing even the words she would use, like from living wage to just wages. That's one of the ones I remember, right? This fear mixed with fear of Republicans calling them radical, which I say they shouldn't fear because they're going to call them radical no matter what, because Kamala ran the most center campaign a Democrat has in a long time and was still called a communist. So they shouldn't be shy from leading a way into this like they have been, aside from Bernie Sanders, right? When we saw the momentum he was able to achieve. But instead, Democrats try to pull this really stupid strategy of like, we're going to pull from the middle and getting these angel disaffected Republicans. And it's just never worked for Democrats. So I don't understand like why this is that the strategy that they keep wanting to go back to. They need to realize that the more moving parts of the Democratic agenda is the populist notes that of the base is the populist notes that the agenda strikes. People who are mad that the establishment isn't paying a living wage, or that they're coached their whole lives to go to college only for it to bankrupt them once they get there, or to have a college degree to make a decent amount of money in the first place, or how they can't afford therapy but really need it, or medicine, or they can't afford that treatment for their sick family member, right? They keep getting priced out of the housing market, or that food continues to get too expensive. And only one party is proposing solutions to these issues. And if that party stuck to calling out these issues, calling out the establishment that creates these issues, stoking the anger that people have about them, and then backing that up with truly economically populist solutions to them. Hey, let's raise the minimum wage to a living wage. Let's tie it to inflation so it continues to index and go up to where inflation is never making the minimum wage a non-livable wage. Let's forgive student loan debt. Let's make healthcare guaranteed so that it's not about how much money you have. Let's do universal housing so people aren't dying on the streets in the wealthiest country in the world. Let's do fines for price gouging. And people will start to realize once these things go into effect and once it's put on the forefront of the discussion, how much, one, it at first burdens the quality of their life, and then how much these solutions raise the quality of their life as it begins to go up when the fight for wealth isn't so concentrated at the top and everyone can actually have a piece of the pie. They won't even think twice about going back to how it was, right? We lit a fire with Bernie in 2016, but we weren't willing to fully commit to it. And it bred the environment for someone like Trump to rise. So let's stop making that same mistake in 2028.